Welcome everyone to the bounce off. Hi V.
Hi, P. Oh my gosh.
Wait, Vanita, I'm still I continue to be more and more heartbroken by this Montague Capulet rift between us. I'm really feeling it in our dynamic. Not like that it's taken our friendship has taken a hit, but that there's this tension in the air between our two countries that
Yeah.
we both love. And we love each other's countries too. And you used to live here and
Yeah, it really came to a head this week, hey, with everything activated, tariffs and whatever, the term trade war.
Justin Trudeau being this is dumb.
Yeah, because it's dumb. And you know
Yeah.
what's, I think the hardest part for me, so I've had a shift in empathy actually too, because,
No way.
well, because before I used to be like, you motherfuckers, millions of you voted for this shit. You can't be like, oh, I didn't know this was gonna happen. And now I've shifted a little bit more to sort of be like, you probably didn't know this was going to happen. You didn't really know the impact. Like, you didn't think that your
Yeah.
son was going to lose his job at the VA. And you didn't think that, that I'm actually starting to feel for the surprise factor for a lot of Americans. And I think that empathy, if I could speak for all of Canada right now, I actually think that that is countrywide here. Like, there is an anti-American sentiment for sure. They're reducing flights by 10% down to the US because there's a lot of Canadians who are decided not to travel there. That being said, there is still the support for the American people.
I saw this video of this French senator. Did you see this one? It was making the rounds and
No.
from actual France, and he was in French, so I loved every second of it. He was talking about this is what's going on in the US. We have a ketamine drugged out sycophant managing their budget. I was like, "What? Wait, that's incredible. Thank you." And it was just and it was so focused on the leader is doing all of this and democracy. And he did say something like, the American people are resisting and I feel for them. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. I think it was Manitoba. There was an executive order about American liquor on shelves.
Yes, it's
And I
approved.
don't remember. You told me that it's more the red states that are being targeted.
I think now it's all.
I think now it's all, and then there was
Yeah.
a letter from the Kentucky Bourbon Distillers Association that was this is going to cost people jobs and these tariffs are not going to be good for our business. Did a lot of people have enough foresight to know that that was going to happen? Yes. So I don't really, when people just claim ignorance, I'm kind of I mean, you in this day and age, you don't super have an excuse to be that ignorant anymore, It's willful.
Totally. Totally. I completely agree. And actually, I'm glad that you started off with this Montague Capulet dynamic because it's one of the things I wanted to chat with you today about how it's spilling into the sports world now in a different way. I got strong opinions and I want to hear yours. Okay, so set the background. Last week, Donald, as Trudeau refers to him now, um, officially extended an invite to the Super Bowl champs, to the Philadelphia Eagles, to the White House. Eagles haven't responded yet. In 2018, they didn't go, or at least start. Some key players were like, "We're not going," and then Donald withdrew his invitation like a child and said, "You can't come to my party." Then, okay, Charles Barkley, former NBA player, now commentator. He just was interviewed on a podcast, and he's got a lot of hate for the people who are refusing to go to the White House, and he's calling it stupid. So in his
What?
interview, he goes, I don't care who the president is. He's the president of the United States. It's bothered me the last 10 years. And when they're like, oh, I'm not going because this certain person is president. And he goes, dude, it's the president of the United States. Now, here's the sentence that really got me. Even though I disagree with President Trump on some things, if I met him, I would still give him the respect and dignity he deserves. Respect he deserves, Charles.
Yeah, that's so outdated. I feel yeah, that's certainly a position of privilege where we're like still talking about him as though he's a normal president and that norms are still applying that way.
Correct. Correct. And just because someone holds a title or a role, that there is an automatic deserving of treatment. It feels very archaic, traditional. And I will say that's often been my perspective about some of the things that Charles Barkley decides to like bark on an opinion about. Like sorry, he does some things that really he said some things that really have irked me in the past. But it started to make me think about, this concept of respect. And in my view, respect should align with my values. It's hard for me to respect someone whose actions are actively undermining the dignity and rights of whole groups of people. I think athletes really, anyone with a platform can make a really powerful statement by choosing to speak out rather than just decide to show up for a photo op. It's a photo op. That's
Totally.
all the invitation is to the White House.
Yep. And McDonald's sandwiches, I
And
guess, sometimes.
right, exactly. Okay, so I started to think about why men's teams also seem to get the coverage of invites to the White House. All I can think about, and I don't know what you can in recent history, is I remember the US women's soccer team declining an invite in 2019 after they won the World Cup. But it feels like when women's teams do it, it feels more optional. I don't even think they get invited as frequently. There's not as much media coverage. So
Right. I
here's
mean, the World Cup is only every 4 years, right? So it's not like he's inviting the champion every year.
exactly. So this is my question to you, P, because in this state in 2025, is the White House invite still seen as prestigious for athletes? Or does it just come with political baggage now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's come with political baggage since the Kaepernick years because the game started, being associated with all these dialogues that was bigger than the game.
Right.
And
Right.
so now this is about like how do you stand for your values when you are a public figure who everyone's telling you to shut up and play. This is your role as an athlete. What I thought you were, or maybe hoped you were going to say that Charles Barkley said was if I were in a room with him, then I would use that as an opportunity to have his ear. And that's not what he said. But I could absolutely respect a team that decides to go to the White House and use that platform to have a conversation or to wear something in protest or to,
Mm,
have some sort of statement accompany that because they want the president to hear and understand something that comes from the team.
nice.
Like
Yeah.
that I would absolutely like if I were invited in any way, shape, or form, I would probably go just for that reason so that I could be like, yo, I need you to hear some things.
You just made me think, is that why you think the Eagles are delaying their response? Like they're in brainstorm
So
mode
they
right
can like
now about,
get into like what should we do with this and how can we use it?
yeah,
That would be cool.
like
I'm
if we
looking
say
at a
yes, here's the plan type of thing.
it's saying that one player offered insight into the situation. This is from a day ago on NJ.com. One of my favorite sources for news. On his podcast, Darius Slay said he avoids politics. We did not have a team meeting or any kind of meeting about not going. We don't know how that's going to play out. I'm really just looking forward to that ring so I can put it in my little case and have all my stuff set up real nice. Yeah, it's like, it's all the shit that comes with winning the Super Bowl. It's like, I'm going to Disneyland. We're having a parade. Here's your ring and here's your handshake with the president. And so now it's like that last one all of a sudden is way more fraught than it ever has been. And now it's not just a given, it's actually a choice.
Correct. From a fan perspective, I don't really see it as a prestigious thing for athletes to do. If I was an athlete, P, what I would rather have is like a Netflix docuseries about our win. Like
Mm-mm.
I don't need the White House, dude. Pour those resources. Let's get a docuseries to share more about who we are and what our
Yeah.
win was all about. Like our generation, a millennial, I don't actually think it means the same thing to
Mm-mm.
meet a politician in the way that it used to. In 2009, I met Nancy Pelosi
No
at
way.
yeah, at this
In
like
San
in
Francisco.
San Francisco, and she was touring the clinic that I worked at. Even then, I just like didn't I understood who she was, but it didn't have the same excitement as, dare I say, some of the older employees at the clinic
Yeah.
who associate it with prestige. But I think everyone in our generation was like, all right, I guess we'll just do this photo
Whatever.
op and yeah,
Yeah. I
stick this
mean,
flag behind us.
I have really, really wanted to meet Bernie Sanders
Ugh, yeah.
just to like thank him for working so tirelessly. And I wouldn't be mad about meeting Kamala Harris because she lives in LA and she's brown.
Yes.
And I just think
Yes.
that would be cool to be like, me too. Okay, I have two things to say, sort of related. Let me start with the, like, I guess, darker one, which
Oof.
is another crossover with sports, is that there's been some discourse that I'm seeing online about, like, should the World Cup and the Olympics not happen here in North America? Especially because North America, like the World Cup specifically, is like that's the region that's hosting it, and we
Yeah.
are very much not united right now. And, there are takes like just like scrap the World Cup from North America. Canada will probably get on board with that. Like the UK can handle it, kind of thing. And it feels weird also asking the world to celebrate us. It's going to be like when Germany had the fucking Olympics in the 30s.
Seriously.
You can't support, or even like Russia, I think there was the Winter Olympics in Russia that was weird.
Yep. Even when the World Cup was in Russia, there it was
Hmm.
weird. Yep. Yep.
So I could see this really being such a devastating hit to all the planning for 2028 in LA and all of America's shenanigans totally overshadowing our city and what we want to do here. Our city is really going through some shit right now. We are in like fucking disarray. There's stuff going on between the mayor and the fire
Ouch.
department, and I don't think she's going to make it through the next round of elections. So it's just like it's everything is such a disaster. So like, do you think that we need to rethink this?
I'm going to say yes. And mostly because if I think about the fan experience and the player experience, of course, it's hard for me to predict where things will be in a year and a half. But it does seem to me like the ease of moving between the three countries of Canada, US, and Mexico is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Gary Bettman, who's the NHL commissioner, just made a brief statement yesterday or anyway about how these tariffs could really have an impact on the NHL.
Yeah,
And
and the MLB too, for that matter. Like those are two leagues that we share.
that's it. That's it. And so, how will it impact the World Cup? Hard to say, but the fact that we even have to talk about it and wonder about it is making me wonder if there's probably a better time and place for these countries to host. And I will say, I don't want to answer in that way because I just registered myself to be on the notification list for FIFA tickets. My husband, like Berto and I, sat down and we were like, do we even want to go to the US if we got tickets in an American city? Or do we just want to do Toronto, Vancouver, the Canadian cities? Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey are in Mexico. And we were like, do we just want to do those ones? I don't really want to go to Houston or
Well,
Atlanta or
California's doing one.
yeah, so we decided we would do LA, the Bay, and Seattle. Again, Cascadia, like we
Cascadia.
do.
Does California count as Cascadia
I think they
technically?
get lumped into the discussion about it, so I'm just gonna I would still like I'm a West Coast girly, of course, but I would include those American cities, but I
Uh-huh.
already people don't want to be traveling to the US. I don't imagine with the chaos of FIFA it's going to be that much more secure or safer.
Right, and like, how is FIFA going to properly organize this when there's no unity between the three countries that are supposed to be, coordinating together?
Correct. I have faith that the event organizers will have their shit together and coordinate really well. It's the government policies and visas and whatever
Yeah.
other paper, like that's the thing that I can already foresee being a disaster
Yeah.
of some athletes not being able to make it in time, fans getting stopped or having to pay whatever extra whatever fees. It just feels really already so annoying to deal with.
You know what? And I was just thinking about like, when they put like countries on alert as like not being safe to travel to, every so often the US ends up on that list, and it's been mostly during Trump's terms. And like I could just imagine fans from Latin America trying to come to games And then, like, it's probably not safe for you as a brown person to travel here if you don't have the papers that people are looking for, because ICE could just fucking detain you. And then what? Then you're
Right.
Brittany Griner.
You're in fucking Guantanamo Bay,
Yeah.
and it's true. I have a lot of queer friends who are big soccer fans and don't want to even mess with going to the US during this time, particularly in Florida, where they just feel like they wouldn't be protected in any way, shape, or form. I know there's other
Hmm.
states too, but you're right that there are safety alerts and there are people who are not as safe. And that's the truth. They are not as safe traveling to the US for this. And so it is making their decisions quite clear.
What a
And
hot mess.
hot mess. Yep.
All right. Well, my other thing is a little bit happier, but you might have opinions about this too, because you mentioned like if you won a championship, you would want a docuseries or a documentary about the win. Well, someone is actually getting that.
Judging by that smile on your face, P.
There is going to be a documentary about the Dodgers versus Yankees World Series win, as if we haven't relived those moments enough.
I'm just gonna
As if,
fast forward to all the Kike parts. That's what
yeah,
I'm.
the key. I just if he gets interviewed, I'm in. But like, literally that that moment in game one where Freddie Freeman hit the walk-off home run is painted on not not just one wall in LA. Like this mural exists in multiple
Oh,
places. The taco place that we took you to in our neighborhood, Villa's Tacos, he's
yes.
opening a second location, and his second location just has Freddie Freeman painted on the side in that moment with him like holding the bat above his head.
Yes.
So, did we need this? No. Are people going to be like, "What the fuck? Only a very small slice of people cares about this documentary." But am I going to be sort of satisfied that this exists? Yes.
We'll get your review. I'm sure of it. I can't. I really. I want to know what Yankees fans think of this. You
I
know.
do too. I mean, I didn't tell this news to Dan because I just feel like he doesn't want to hear it. But so I will imagine that most Yankees fans feel that way about it. Like they've had
And
to see that stuff enough, I think.
that's what I. But also, like, if I was a Yankees fan, would I watch it still, or at least give it an episode? Some masochistic shit, I know, but like, my team is featured. You know, there is some
Yeah.
curiosity.
And there will be like that one episode where the Yankees turned it around. Right?
Yeah, you're like, let me go to episode 3 and just watch that one. Oh
Yeah.
shit, that's so awesome. Well, I'm excited for you, P. That's all I can say. Um, Speaking of petty shit,
Yes.
which I feel like petty's been a theme our last few weeks. Okay, so we all know about Serena crip walking Kendrick's halftime show. I can't help but think this is hilarious, which is great news, by the way. WNBA is expanding to Canada. We're going to get our first
Yes.
Canadian team, the Toronto Tempo. Serena Williams has just joined as an owner.
Yes.
And what rapper reps Toronto so much, P?
Oh, yes. Oh, she is. She, oh my God.
I mean, it could be coincidence, right? Like it could be
No,
coincidence.
no, no way. That's exactly what I would do.
Oh my God, 100%. I would also be like, hey, want to perform at a halftime show? Come to our game. I love this for so many reasons. Obviously, like I can't help but think about this Drake subplot, perhaps. But man, does she continue to show her dominance in this post-athlete career of hers in the business world? So she'll be helping them with merch deals and I think probably a whole other business strategy side of it. But it really did make me think this is a big move, right? The first WNBA team outside of the US. What does that say about where women's basketball is headed globally? Truthfully, that's what I think added to so much of the success of the Four Nations face-off was we've got this international competition feel to it. And it's been a criticism that I had of the NBA where I was like, guys, get some more international, whatever, competition going if you really want to keep growing. Of course, they have the Toronto Raptors for the NBA, but
Yeah.
I feel like the WNBA might more strategically be expanding to Canada than the NBA really. I think this is only going to help their growth. But here's my real question to you as I think about the role of Serena. P, do you think should more retired athletes be investing in women's sports? Not just for money, but to actually change how leagues are run. They have firsthand experience. They know where the gaps are. They know where what the player experience is. So rather than just being the hands-off investor and here's money, Serena really is actually going to like actively be involved in some of the business strategy of this team. What do
Yeah,
you
I'm all
think?
for that. I feel like that kind of decision is like beneficial manyfold because also we've talked so much about retired athletes and how there must be such a like kind of existential like period of grappling with what that means and aging out of your sport. And I think that retaining visibility in the sports world in that way is such a powerful way to keep your legacy going. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's certainly, I wouldn't want to just sort of like fade into the background because, you know, someone will call you a goat and then it's kind of like, all right, well, we're on to the new crop of like young people. And so Serena, I have to say, I've loved Serena as a persona way more post her tennis career
Mm.
because of moves like this and because of how she's been showing up in the world as not a tennis player or as a former tennis player. I was always a Venus fan because big
Oh.
sister vibes.
Uh-huh. Yep. Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I didn't necessarily connect with Serena on the court, but I'm absolutely connecting with what she's been doing off the court after retiring.
100%. So with you. So with the way her like husband shows up too.
Oh, he
Uh
gets petty too, which I love.
Me too. Pettiness. Listen, we're here for it. Give me more of it. I just think she's doing a great job role modeling to even active athletes right now for female athletes, all athletes, what life could look like post retirement. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this depressive lull, this question of what's my purpose. There's actually a lot that you can do to continue to give back to your sport, to many sports. I like think she's such a perfect owner for an international expansion team, and I'm pumped to get some Toronto Tempo gear now.
Toronto gear though.
I know,
Oof.
listen. I'm glad you know that dynamic up here, P, which is we love to shit on Toronto, but until Vancouver gets a team, Vancouver used to have an NBA team, the Grizzlies, and then moved to Memphis. But until Vancouver gets a team, we just kind of like all of Canada rallies around the Toronto Raptors. We the North, we win the championship. It was like the biggest win. That's literally their slogan, right? So I think it'll be cool to have a WNBA team with the same, like an entire country behind you.
Wait, I have two thoughts about this too. First of all, did you ever watch, there was a show on like CNBC that was like limited run of episodes, but it was basically A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, former Yankee, who was like coaching athletes and celebrities on how to manage their finances post their like period of success. And like I think one of the first episodes, or certainly the best one, was him with Ryan Lochte and how, you know, Ryan Lochte had all the success and then sort of overspent right at the top. And then he and his family were just like in financial, like dire straits. And
Right.
so A-Rod was basically one of his strategies for Ryan was like leverage who you are so that visibility is part of what pays your bills, right? Like you can start a foundation that then gets you speaking engagements about like youth sports or whatever thing that you're already doing. Like, how do you leverage that into your future financial security? He was a really good coach in that way because he saw this epidemic that we see with athletes who don't come from much financial literacy and then are given all this money in sort of like a burst and
Right.
then
Right.
have to understand how to make that last for them.
What a cool concept for a show.
I know. I wish he had done more episodes because I really enjoyed it. I thought he was really great at it. And I think that we could see this happening with so many athletes. Like it would have been so helpful for people because it wasn't just how do you leverage your millions when you get them, it was like how do you make a long lasting career
Correct.
when
Right.
your career has a limited time frame, and that's exactly what we're talking about Serena doing with like a move like this.
This is it. But side note, did you ever have a crush on A-Rod? Were you one of those girlies?
I didn't. I had a roommate who really did, and if I had to choose between the two crushable Yankees, because it was like sort of Jeter versus A-Rod, give me A-Rod any
Uh,
day.
Hundo
I
percent.
also was sort of devastated that he and J-Lo didn't work out because I thought they might just be sort of the perfect match.
Ugh, so hot, both of them.
Yeah, they were an amazing looking couple together, and I loved their energy. It was like Latin energy, and then she immediately leaves him for Ben Affleck, and I was like so deflated.
Probably a lot of us, probably he was the most deflated,
Yeah.
but
I mean, she seems like a handful.
I know. Still so gorgeous, but a handful. You can't be gorgeous like that gorgeous and not be a handful, P.
That's
I
probably
just
true.
I just don't think that's possible.
Maybe she just like needs to pick someone who's not that gorgeous to be with, and that's what she needs, you know.
Wasn't that Ben Affleck?
Yeah, I mean
Wasn't
like
he?
it's like she sucks the gorgeousness out of all the other guys.
When she's done with them, they're just like
Yeah, they're
skeletons of
done.
themselves.
Okay, my other thought about this was regarding Canadian sports teams. V, I feel like you were holding out on some like team drums from me, and I don't know if that's just because you can't do Vancouver Canucks, because but there was all kinds of team drums with them because JT Miller was recently traded to the Rangers. He's
Yes.
been good on that team, but unfortunately with the last Ranger game last night, the Rangers have not secured their playoff berth. But what I read about there were a lot of rumors about this dynamic on the Canucks and why JT Miller was traded, and should that Pedersen guy have been traded instead of him? Was it the rift between the two of them that was creating locker room toxicity? And then there was like some rumor that got circulating around JT Miller's wife, because JT Miller before getting traded had to take a leave of absence, and he wasn't clear about the specific reason.
Why?
He just said it was kind of more personal reasons and it wasn't physical. And so people were like, oh, his wife was like having an affair. And so then all of that. And so she had to kind of like get involved.
Oh,
And then some people are talking about perhaps it was coaching. Crazy drums. I didn't realize any of this had been going on.
here's what I feel about most leagues pre-trade deadline. A lot of drama. Like
Yeah, okay.
I just think that rumors start to fly, things start to leak. Sometimes I wonder if there's a strategy behind plugging a rumor because there might be some kind of trade strategy behind the doors that are happening. I mean, listen, I'm not a Canucks fan. I do live in this city, but I will still cheer my Oilers on. Not Wayne Gretzky, for the record.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think it gets so overwhelming right before the trade deadline because there are tons of rumors that come out about so many players and so many teams that I kind of just push it all off as noise, quite frankly, because I just wonder if there's some strategy behind it all. Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
maybe.
sense. I mean, and you never have a fan that like loves the choice you made. As evidenced by the Mavs, who were in the news yet again. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I think I missed it.
So Mavericks fans were so mad about the Luca trade. He was clearly a big star and a beloved figure, and Dallas did not want to lose him. He has been so fun to have in LA. He's really crushing it. He seems so just excited to be here and to be having fun. He's being sassy on the court. He paid for parking at Crypto in his debut game so that everyone who came was able to park at the center for free. He and LeBron seem to be getting on. It's really amazing to see. I love him. So, but I remember when we talked about the trade happening, you said that like Mavericks fans were not renewing their season
Season
ticket
tickets.
packages. Well, we were also wondering what possible business decision could lead to a trade like this?
Yes, yes.
Well, it seems like questionable business practices might be in their brand because Mavericks raise ticket prices amid fan backlash, is the headline.
What?
Like, what is actually wrong with you?
They don't want people. There is some self-sabotage that's happening.
Yeah.
It feels like purposefully. I'm telling you, they want to move that franchise out of there. I'm like, there's
Mm-hmm.
something there. I know that Todd, when we had him guesting, he was like, I don't know if I'd move him to Vegas. That doesn't make sense. But
Yeah, these prices are going to increase by an average of 8%.
whoa.
And the team cites ongoing investments in the roster and fan experience as the driving force behind the price hike. This is from Boardroom.
This feels like really
Really?
terrible timing to announce a price hike.
Yeah.
Like I get
Yeah,
it.
like
Every team does it. We need to do it. It happens inflation. But why do it now?
your fans are already disgruntled. You're already losing income on people not renewing their tickets. This just felt like the worst possible PR move that they could make. And it does
Mm.
sound like, to your point, like sort of a fuck you to those cities' fans. I don't know like if they need the fans to detach before they move the team to another city, but they're certainly making it easier.
We've seen teams do this before, like go get low numbers for attendance, lose the city's support. It gives you a great case for relocating, dare I say? Or is that maybe that's a
I mean, isn't that
far-fetched
kind of what
theory?
no, Berta was talking about that with the Chargers, right? That they
Yep.
had lost a lot of San Diego by being kind of lackluster and not investing in their fan experience.
I would argue the
And then,
Oakland A's did that too at the baseball
mm,
level, also to move to Vegas.
hmm
Damn, you know what? This makes me think I need to maybe backtrack on a claim I made about the Jimmy Butler trade for the NBA when that happened. And I was like, I don't really want him on the Warriors. They've been playing great
No, I
ever
saw him
since
the
he
other day
traded.
and he looked awesome.
He looked
I was
awesome.
like,
Steph Curry looks awesome. Like there's kind of
yeah,
this, I don't know, morale is up on the team.
love that for them.
I
And for
hope it's not a
him,
honeymoon period,
yeah,
but I really, I can't
maybe it
help but be
pulled him out of his funk.
Maybe. I hope so. I hope so. P, I love controversial shit. And boy, do I have a couple for you.
Gimme.
Okay, we talked about Serena, post-athlete, active athlete Serena. And one of, I think, the ways that she has been really vulnerable in her storytelling has been about her experience of being a mom and how that's changed her, how that impacted her as an athlete. And this week, right now, are the bobsled and skeleton world championships. It's in Lake Placid, New York. And the reason why it's making headlines is because there's a record number of mothers competing, more than ever
Oh.
before. And of all the sports that I think would be the North Star of how to respectfully and appropriately accommodate moms, I did not have the International Bobsled and Skeleton Federation on my radar because they are the ones. So they have implemented some very progressive maternity leave policies to support these athletes. So athletes who miss a season because of maternity leave return. So when they leave on maternity leave, they retain the spot that they had upon return. So they don't have to, go to more competitions to requalify. It makes it
Oh,
easier for them,
cool.
which is so cool. Easier for them to transition back into competition. I don't know how I feel about this because it feels like they're opposites. Like somebody can't be a mom and also be an elite athlete. Should I even be surprised that so many moms are competing at this level? Is it outdated that this is a headline? Of course, I got really excited. And then I was like, I can't believe we have to say, here are the number of moms we have in this competition. We would never say that about dads ever.
Hmm.
And then there's the good old language of, when they call someone inspiring. Oh, you're so inspiring. And versus just like, whoa, this person's a threat to the competition and here's how badass they are. So I don't know, P, how do you think media should cover this? Is it a celebration of working moms or does the mom angle help the narrative or hurt the narrative?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the personal stories about these women, that I think what's the most interesting is what you're saying about what the governing body is doing. And so as a commentator, I would lean heavily into that. Like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
she is a mother who, took this much time off and was able to come back and be at the top of her game because of this. I would talk about it like that because that still feels like stats versus like information versus like fluff. Because we
Yes.
talked about this with like the Full Swing docuseries. Like whenever these guys have that segment about like my family and like my kids, I'm just like, ugh.
Ugh, for sure. I'm like, you don't even see them and your partner's doing all the work. Get out of here.
Yeah. Also, like, yeah, don't make it seem like you are some sort of saint. I just find that, like, when dads get focused on families in those kinds of documentaries, it sort of makes it feel like they don't focus on anything outside of themselves
Yep.
in a way that, like, moms just can't
Right.
necessarily be like that.
I'm so with you. I mean, as someone who's also a mom, and I always like tout the players in their 40s because it just like gives me hope. I love seeing these women come back from mat leave and continue to be so incredibly competitive, and the appreciation for how much work it is to retrain the body that isn't the
Hmm.
same to get back to that level of competition.
Yeah, like that. We've talked about that before too. Like, that's the stuff we want to hear. Like, what was that training process like? How long did it take her? How did she shift the way that she plays this game? I don't want to hear like those generic posters that are like attitude. Like, calling someone inspiring for being a mom and an athlete is like one of those posters. It's like,
Exactly.
give us actual information about this person.
Interview them, get the details. It's not just
Hmm.
you're a mom, cool, there's the headline. No, dude, there's so much more in this story.
Hmm.
I gotta say, when as I even researched this, I've never known so many bobsled sledders and their names before. I've never even known, just because I really wanted to know like who are these women and what's happening and what is this sport doing?
Side note,
Okay.
I have I went to high school with someone who won the silver for bobsled two man, and just on our theme at the top of the show, this was in 2018, and she let Ivanka Trump try on her medal and take a picture, and that was the moment. But it's like to our point earlier, like, is that an honor? If someone like that asks you and you get this photo op, is that photo op actually good for you, or did you just get intoxicated by the fact that someone that famous and powerful asked to wear your medal?
Oh, was she on your Facebook before and then you unfollowed her?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that involved with that person, but there were a lot of people who were very excited and like went out there to actually watch her compete. And then after I saw that, I was like, no, I cannot be
Yep.
associated to this.
Or a photo
Like,
op. This is so fucking wild.
shameful.
That
Shameful.
is. Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like, yay, great, cool maternity leave policies. Now here's what's cool. The Women's Tennis Association, so WTA, also announced a groundbreaking initiative that they have for mat leave policy. Now they are providing up to 12 months of paid mat leave for players. We love to see it.
Wow.
The program offers grants for fertility treatments, 2 months of paid leave for other forms of parenthood like surrogacy or adoption. I don't think I say this lightly. Like, this is really pioneering in women's sports to be offering this level of flexibility.
This is,
And
I mean, this is pioneering in the whole world of business. Like, our government won't do this, companies won't do this. Like, we have to look to like socialist countries like Canada to even get close to this kind of benefits for parents. And so for a league that has American athletes to offer that is absolutely amazing.
totally. And big ups to like the women who were became moms while also athletes because their advocacy certainly helped in this. But there's a twist, P.
Uh-oh.
This is all being funded by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund.
Wait, why do we keep talking
Oh
about
my God.
public
I
investment?
bet you did not see that twist coming. Oh,
The amount of times we've talked about Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is like the same amount of times we've mentioned Steeplechase.
for real. Which I hope listeners gives you a sense of really how much Maybe sports washing is really
Yeah.
relevant day to day, and how much is worth following the dollar here.
That is fascinating. Do you think that their investment was like a general investment and this is just how it was used? Or do you think they're also sports washing in terms of their like women's rights issues by specifically championing this?
I mean, it feels like sports washing left, right, and center here. I don't trust the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund to all of a sudden be female friendly in their
Yeah,
policies. Like,
right.
not
That's why
happening.
I wonder if it was just like a fund and then like it's discretionary how it's spent by the organization.
But it sounds like the only way that they can even offer these benefits at WTA is if they partner with
So they
this
have to like
investment fund.
win a proposal or something with them.
Well, okay, so here's the next layer of question then, based on what you just asked, which is can the WTA take that money and still claim that they are an organization that cares about women's rights and player autonomy, given, I don't know, Saudi Arabia's shit record on women's freedoms?
Shit. What do we do about this? Like if a female tennis player came out and said something about women's rights in Saudi Arabia, would they be deterred because of this money? Would they be somehow punished or fined because of it? That seems to be sort of like how we follow that.
Excellent questions. Truthfully, these are all the things I wonder. Yeah, would they be blocked somehow in a way that we wouldn't know from accessing the funds because of what they've shared? Also, imagine P, like, fuck, I really want to take mat leave. I want to be with my kid. I want to, have that bonding time attachment, but you have to sacrifice some values alignment here in order to have that
Oof,
time compensated feels really gross and violating.
blood money.
Yes. What's interesting is obviously this plays a big role for women's tennis, but what about for the ATP? Like, the
Hmm.
men who don't have to worry about pregnancy at all. Like, do the men's tennis players get a paternity leave policy too? I couldn't find anything as I was looking for that, but I wanted to celebrate it and I was so excited to be like, look at all these dope mat leave policies happening across professional sports. And I saw the thunder and the money and this feels real. And fuck, like, does the Women's Tennis Association, what pill do they have to swallow in order to accept? Is it better to accept the funds and have that at least be a policy, or
Right, right. My hunch is I don't know if they agonized about this as much as we are because
why do we
it,
why do we agonize about this shit, Pete? What's wrong with us?
you know, that was coming up. I know we said we were going to talk about the Oscars a little bit,
Hmm.
but I have like
Hmm.
I have a weird thing about the winner that swept all of the winners categories, which was unexpected for me. It was Honora, which was a movie I saw and wasn't particularly impressed by, but certainly she was good in it. The thing about this movie, people are pretty split about this result. They're kind of like, that movie wasn't good enough to win all these awards, and some people are like, this is an independent film with a $6 million budget that did commercially and critically really
Hmm.
well and basically
Hmm.
won top honors. That's huge for the business. And Sean Baker, shout out, he was a film independent alum. He's, a champion of independent film. It's kind of like this is a cis white dude who has not made just one film about a female sex worker. So
Oh.
I'm kind of like, what is that? Of course, this movie had all these
Hmm.
controversies because the lead, Mikey Madison, declined to have an intimacy coordinator on set. And generally, people in the industry are of the mind that if you have subject matter like this, you need to have one because it's not just for the lead actress's safety, it's for the safety of everybody on the film and on set.
Right.
So that was a controversy around it, and it seems maybe like that, like the kind of like we can handle this ourselves mentality is symptomatic of some of the hubris that would make a white man want to tell these kinds of stories. His other movie, Tangerine, was about a woman of color who was a sex worker. So I'm kind of
Hmm.
like, what? This feels a little bit like the Sam Levinson Euphoria kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Whoa. Do you know much about Sean? I didn't realize he had two movies now, and it's Now I'm
He
like,
has a third movie about a sex worker as well, but that's a former male porn star who's white. And so that feels like a story that is perhaps more appropriate for him to tell. But there is something here about these stories being of so much interest to him. I didn't think that Honora had enough of a story to have an impact on the sex worker world,
right,
really.
right. Yeah, like is he
Yeah,
doing this like is he trying to advocate for the community in some way? Is he I don't know. Like storytelling obviously powerful, right? That's how people become
yeah.
aware of certain things.
Right. I'm not
But
sure what I was supposed to become aware of as a result of watching Honora.
that's what I wondered. I'm like, was there as an audience member an impact on you that made you feel like, ah, I got why this was made, or I know why this
It was more for me about like fucking Russian oligarchs having no regard for other people.
I feel like if people listen to this podcast, they'll hear Steeplechase, Russian oligarch,
Saudi
Saudi
sovereign wealth
Arabia.
fund.
And you're like, this is a sports podcast. I
Yeah.
believe it. As a side note, I do think Conan O'Brien crushed it
He
at
did
the
crush it.
Oscars.
He was wonderful. I was thinking of you the whole time.
I just adore him so much, P. So much like it was just so on brand for Conan and his style of humor.
Yeah,
And
it
I love
worked.
that. I love that he brought him to the role of host. It made me miss his late night talk show, actually. Like, there were
Mm,
just these little things that he would do that reminded me of it. I thought he was just edgy enough with some of his jokes and comments and modern and up to date enough that
yeah.
I fucking loved it. And then I heard after the Oscars that I guess the producers really pushed back on him saying anything about Drake and being a pedophile. You remember he was like, I'm lawyered up,
Yeah.
I'm all good.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess like the producers really till the last minute were just like pushing back and the writers were like, "No, it's fine." And it that was one of the things that you just go back and forth on, but I'm so glad he went for it.
All right, V, what are you currently obsessed with?
Okay, so P, I want to say right here off the front that P and I are taking a few weeks break. We'll be back for playoff season. There's a lot of good stuff coming up.
The beginnings of baseball season 2, and the Dodgers are
Yes.
looking pretty good.
And if you're not sure how good, check out the docuseries coming out. And that's why my obsession this week is actually more of a reflection.
Hmm.
And it was inspired by this conversation between Mindy Kaling and Monica Padman on the Armchair Expert podcast.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Mindy Kaling and Meghan Markle.
Just who is that for? I don't even
I,
know.
how did we get here? Okay, sorry.
How
Okay,
did we get
armchair
here?
expert. Got it.
Okay, so yeah, you and I, P, have talked about our thoughts about Mindy Kaling and her role in the industry and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation these two women dive into, especially because, of course, from cultural backgrounds like ours, P, in this conversation, they're willing to show vulnerability and share their stories. And I know for us, you know, as children of immigrants as well, there's always been this sense of privacy, of keeping things close. There's a real hesitation. Even the fact, P, that you and I work in mental health.
Yeah, that's a big one.
If you're not of our identities and you're a listener, it's really hard to explain just how much that breaks so many cultural rules and
Yeah,
cultural
like
barriers. And
pressure for reservation and anonymity and
that's it. We're conditioned to worry about what others will think, what our families will
hmm
think, and I get that. But when I saw these two or heard these two and others in similar spaces breaking through that, speaking about their experiences, it really hit me in kind of a deep way in that to do a podcast with you, to see folks connect over this shared experience, it reminds me of an unspoken bond that I feel like I have with you, P. Just it's like a reminder that we come from these reserved backgrounds. There's a whole community out there also navigating this journey. And there's just like this shared understanding that goes beyond words. It's like always there, always lingering.
yep.
We're in a professional field that doesn't always isn't always embraced by our cultures. We're talking about sports and and these weird conversations that just like there's not people like you and I in this space. And to hear the way that Monica and Mindy were talking about it, all I could think about was just like you and I and how we have our conversations and the fact that we decided to move it more from private space to now do it publicly. was a big decision for us. And of course, folks who listen is just like, oh yeah, it's like these two chicas having this conversation about sports. But there's a lot of thought into it and of why we want to do this. But it has made me, before we take a break, really appreciate the fact that I get to do this with you, P. And I guess the obsession here really is, I'm sure people do this in every little way, but the ways that you break free from certain rules or the unlearning that we all are actively doing is such hard work, is so uncomfortable, and I feel very lucky that I get to do it with you, P.
Ania.
Oh, that's British P, in case y'all haven't heard British P.
I love that. It's so bizarre. We've talked about this a bunch, but like that immediate connection that I felt with you was weird, like just such a gravitational pull. And you're right, like there is an unspoken understanding, but you and I are not particularly that reserved as people.
That true. That word has never been used to describe me.
So I think that too is something really cool to see, right? Like how another brown girl can be out there, out loud and proud with her personality,
Mm.
despite, a lot of pressures that kind of pull us in the other direction. It's something that I struggled with a lot being in this profession. Yeah, it's been nice to, like, we're not censoring anything that we feel on this podcast, and it's been such an amazing forum to have those thoughts and feelings be accepted by you, shared in a lot of times by you, and even like
Yeah.
when we disagree, it feels safe. Like, I love that we're doing this, and I hope more people find us.
Me too. And I'm sharing this also because I've had listeners text me about that. Now, these are like women of color who are also listening to us. And
Aw.
what the dynamic means to have found another person of a shared identity or some identities. Yeah, show up in a space where you're like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, I don't know everything, but it's whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
think I especially heard about this after I used the phrase raw dog in an episode. Where someone was like, "V, you haven't changed since you were 12. Cool, thank you."
Yeah.
Um, but I really mean this in that when we talk about sports, part of I hope I can talk for you, P, as well here. Part of what we've loved is critically analyzing sports, the role that it
Mhm.
has in our day to day, because it does have a powerful cultural role, and how there are different ways to engage with it. And there are things that you can learn about yourself through it. There are ways that you can actually build relationships through it. We're not being prescriptive here. There's so many, hopefully, y'all have heard like all the different ways that you can think for yourself when it comes to engaging with sports. But I just feel very grateful to be as honest and real as we can be and have people be supportive of us out there.
Amazing. I mean, this recording with you every week and hearing what you have to say and just connecting with you has been giving me life during a time where
Hmm.
I'm getting life sucked out of me left and right. Like, this has been
Oh,
such
that's
an
what J-Lo.
amazing.
Are you dating J-Lo?
Oh, what a callback. It was Conan level precision.
Oh, stop. That is a high compliment. Here for it. Okay, that's my cheesy ass for obsessions. This week. P, what about you? What are you obsessed with?
That was very apropos. I'm obsessed with another theme that comes up a lot in our podcast, which is aging and women aging.
Hmm.
Because on Monday, I went to see Heart in concert. They were performing here at Crypto. Now, I had tickets for this for a long time because the show was supposed to be this past September. They have postponed a bunch of their shows indefinitely because Anne got cancer
Hmm.
and she was undergoing cancer treatment. And then they're like, okay, there's a rescheduled date. It's in March. All of their dates are back on the calendar. Like the day after she did this show, they were going to Sacramento.
Whoa.
So just like these women are working, but I have seen quite a few, I'll call them geriatric acts in my in the recent like past couple years because a lot of these 80s and 90s acts are coming back on tour or they're touring still. And while there is always sort of like a bittersweetness to how these bodies have changed and how these voices have changed. Like, mad respect to this woman, dude. Like, first of all, Nancy still was like kicking her
Mm.
thigh-high boots up in the air and like shredding that guitar. Anne had to come out in a wheelchair because she had just gotten elbow surgery and she like needed to rest her elbow on something or else it would have been very painful for her. And she had like her hair was growing back after chemo and it was growing back gray, and we always know her as like this raven-haired, like full-throated voice. And there was damage to her voice, but it was like kind of it was amazing and sad, and I've always wanted to see them because they're sisters and they fucking kick ass and all of their music is awesome, and they did this when it was like definitely a boys club in the
Mm.
70s, 80s and 90s even releasing new music. So, mad respect to them. I saw Belinda Carlisle a couple years ago and she was just like a sprightly vision. So, like, go Hart, go Ann Wilson, go Nancy and Anne being sisters, and go all of these acts who are, just like we're saying with Serena and retired athletes, like still finding ways to be visible and practicing their craft as they age and finding new ways to do it and connecting with their fan bases. Also, a pretty geriatric fan base at that show.
Are you including yourself in that description, P?
I mean, I was there, B. I was amongst them.
But you know what that makes me think about too is the power of the fan, right? Like
Hmm.
this only exists because fans are still very much wanting to support these women and still into this music. I just saw that Alanis Morissette is doing a residency in Vegas. I
Dude, I
mean,
saw Alanis Morissette a couple years ago, and she was fucking incredible.
incredible. Yeah, her voice is
Incredible.
still
Her
so
voice is
good.
unbelievable. Yeah, she was almost better in person than like her recordings.
Oh, I believe that. I actually
She blew me
100% believe
away.
that. 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine her having a residency in Vegas, but
Right?
I do think there is this, as somebody who's like perma stuck in the 90s, there, of course, there's a nostalgia factor to it, but the music industry has changed so much that I've actually only gained more appreciation for those artists we saw in the 90s. I think your shout outs are so valid here with these artists because yes, it's easy to joke, like today's music's not as good, so I'm going to continue to listen. I don't think it's that. I think people are still incredibly
Mm-mm.
talented in 2025, but
Yeah.
the way the music industry has shaped how this person can show up as an artist has, I think, ruined a lot of it for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, like you and I lean fully into the nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
But I do feel like as these artists are aging, it feels so much more important for me to make sure I'm seeing them when they come around because it's like Anne had fucking cancer, dude. She was in a wheelchair on stage. Like, how many more chances are we gonna get to experience these women
Yep.
who were really important to me?
Yes. And imagine too for her, like how much that meant for her to be able to come out and do it. I mean, yeah, it's just like a very human, raw experience. What to see somebody. She knows she's coming up. She knows what her hair looks like. She knows she's in
Yep.
a wheelchair. She knows she's gonna share. Like all of this is just vulnerability after vulnerability,
Yeah.
and I'm so here for that.